What's going on, everyone? We've got another late one going on here. Hey, sometimes when the mood hits, you want to get things done, right? Find somebody who knows somebody to tell somebody about what we've got going on over here. If you like it, let me know. Share it if you do. And subscribe. This is what you're looking for. All right. So what's going on, peeps? How you doing? Glad to catch some folks in here. It's a little bit shorter time here. It's almost 10 o'clock here, Eastern Standard Time local. And this is definitely a random show right now. Okay, so Fatty says he's live, so can't catch him. Just a second. No problem. Seems everybody hitting it late at night here and there. All right, so what we're looking at doing tonight here is having a conversation, and I'm going to title this show, Should I Say Yes, OG Guidance? Reason being, I came across an article yesterday while just doing my perusing, seeing what's out there. I was actually going to do a fact check show, but I figured, you know what? Let's go ahead and lay back for a second and let's do something that's more um, current and cultural right about now. As most of you know, I don't really get into doing too many reaction videos, but I saw something that was disturbing, may not be the right word to it. Let's say concerning. Yeah, I like that. So I saw something that was kind of concerning regarding a young lady who had made a decision that dating was just too much of a problem, that dating guys just wasn't worth it. She'd seen what her friends had gone through, and as a result, she was basing her decision on dating on the experiences of others. Now, disclaimer, everyone can say that you don't have to stick your hand inside of a bear trap and be next to the person and know that it's going to hurt if they spring the trap. Now, we know some things are just going to occur and are going to be because that's how things work. If a tree falls in the woods and you're not there, does it make a sound? Of course it does. It would be disingenuous of anyone to say, well, because I'm not there, I really can't say. Now, that is the epitome of foolishness. We can say that without a doubt, right? So what I wanted to do was take a minute to go through this and actually let everyone else see the video that I'm talking about. And then if I'm joined by Top Cat and Chicago Rilla, hey, excellent. If not, we'll go ahead and keep it rolling. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and get into this. So fair use, fair use. So I'm going to open this up here with a song from back in my days when I was in my teens. Yeah, we're going back a bit. New Shoes, Should I Say Yes? Again, fair use, fair use. Fair use, fair use.
Nothing's gonna tell me what they think that I should do. So much confusion when it comes to loving you.
Fair use. Fair use.
Should I say yes? Should I say no? I wanna know. I wish I knew you better. Should I say yes? Should I say no? You won't wait on me forever. Should I say yes? Should I say no? Wish we were together. Should I say yes? Should I say no? Oh no. Should I say no? Mind tells me one thing when I'm listening to my heart. Will we be together? Will we be together? Or will we be apart? Yeah. Should I say yes? Should I say no? Oh no. Wish I knew you better. Should I say yes? Should I say no? I'm writing you a letter. Should I say yes? Should I say no? Oh, baby, I wish we were together.
All right, let's go ahead and fade this into the background. All right, so should I say yes? Should I say no? Obviously, that's not a question that you hear the young men saying, because the answer with us is definitely going to be yes. No questions even need to be asked about that, right? But again, the situation that I'm seeing more and more as we go further into 2025, 2026, so be it, is that we have Generation Y already at the age of 30, 31, and we've got some of our Gen Z folks 20, 21, 22, and there is a mess in the dating market. And a lot of this happened on the watch of Gen X. Now, one of the things that I am trying to do is to make sure that as we go forward here with the platform, I take time out occasionally to have a conversation with each particular generation. Now, generally speaking, when I'm up here at either with myself or maybe Dwight joined the other night, maybe I might have Alicia up here, aka Hunting Wisdom, or if I can get the council together, we'll discuss things that are pertinent to maybe the 50-55 or the guidance that we should be dispensing or having the conversation about what we may not be doing. But what I'm finding more and more as I look at this, I may need to start opening the panel up now that we've gotten ourselves somewhat established, to bring some of the younger generations up here to see if they're willing to have a conversation. Not for us, as the young guys like to say, oh man, how come you sunning me? No, we're not trying to sun anyone. What we're actually trying to do is cut down on the learning curve that you have to go through. Now, granted, it's 2025, but everything going on in 2025 is no different 10, 15, 20, 25 years ago, albeit technology and a stronger sense of values and communication may have been a little bit different. But that's not the point here. I'm not going to get into a rant about what's good about back in the day versus what's happening now. No, a statement I generally make, I haven't made this in a while, but I'll go ahead and say it right now. I come from a generation where men were respected, women were virtuous, and children did not speak until spoken to. Now, you say that to somebody right now, what you're going to hear is, oh man, y'all just too rough on folks. That's something that the guys would say. Or depending upon the young ladies that you speak with nowadays, oh, that's patriarchy. Oh, that's misogynism. Oh, you're holding me down. You're shaming me. The conversation just starts going off the wall, depending upon how you have it. So the idea here is just to go over maybe a single subject that I found and discuss it from there. So as I said here, hopefully the rest of the crew should get here. Otherwise, I'll just go ahead and take it myself as I normally have to do here, which is not a big deal. But every now and then, if the couches can get together, it's always good to have some other opinions that are provided. All right, stand by for a second. Let's just go ahead and get into this. Let's go ahead and pause these shoes right now and let's get over to the main entertainment. All right, so the article comes from a site called Shine My Crown. And the title is right here. 22-year-old woman who's never had a boyfriend says there's no benefit. I've seen girls' emotional and mental health damaged. Now, the first thing I thought when I saw this is that how are you going to go ahead and make an assessment about whether or not your life will benefit or maybe won't benefit without ever having thrown your hat into the ring? This is an instance where one would say that somebody is living vicariously, albeit negatively, but vicariously through the experiences of others. Now, in doing so, a person is either fearful of what might occur, or if they're not fearful, then they are judgmental because they may look at where they are in life at that moment in time, stating to themselves, you know what, I'm good. My life is all right. Why would I go ahead and make it difficult by including somebody else inside of it? There's a lot of examples that one could give, but still, the first thing that I noticed about this is that if you haven't dated, you haven't had a boyfriend, you haven't had any type of extensive experience or exposure, then what's the negativity that you are putting towards this? Again, I don't want to be too early on this, but let's go ahead and get down to the video and see what we have.
I'm going to say this really quickly because it's really irking me. I can't stand how the guys will take advantage of Amaya and then leave her out to dry. Every single guy has sat up here and paired up with Amaya just because they didn't want to get kicked off. And then when Amaya
I think that is a different video. I'm not sure where this has gone off to. One second. So I'm not sure where the video has run off to here, but let me do this first and foremost. A 22-year-old woman is going viral for her refreshingly honest take on relationships, explaining why she's never had a boyfriend and doesn't see the point in having one anytime soon. Despite coming from a stable two-parent household where love and respect were the norm, she says what she's observed in her peers' relationships has left her with zero desire to engage in romantic partnerships, especially with men. Quote, I've never had a boyfriend. I've gone on like 3 dates in my entire life, but I grew up in a very loving home with my parents, who have been married for 24 years. I haven't seen a single reason to get a boyfriend. Again, this is a judgment that she's passing without ever having gone out with anyone or actually spent time. But still, she's entitled to that. Raised in what she describes as a supportive family with healthy male role models, including her father, uncles, and cousins, the young woman says she's never lacked love or protection. But when she looks at what many of her peers have gone through in relationships, she sees emotional turmoil, heartbreak, and mental struggles. I've seen girls starting at 14 get emotionally manipulated. They're left with emotional and mental damage so deep they need therapy. She criticizes what she calls a trend of playing house in early motherhood without support, adding that too many women are being pushed into relationships that ultimately derail their futures. So, again, you're hearing this, right? She's saying that it appears that these women are being pushed into relationships. Now, as I've said before, I am not red pill. I am not pickup artist. I am just someone with the mirror. And as I've said before, when you hold up the mirror doesn't care about your hopes, your dreams, or aspirations. It just reflects what's there. So, listening to what I'm reading here right now, I've s- I will go as far as saying that I'm listening to a young woman who is reflecting again off of experiences of others that she herself has not partaken in. But based on what she's seeing, she's making the assertion that no, this is not worth it. This is not for me. But what happens if this type of mindset takes hold and truly sets in? There's a level of discontent that may result further down the road by basing your life experiences that you've never ever experienced off of the negativity of others. Let's continue. Financial independence over emotional drain. Her take also addresses financial self sufficiency, pointing out that she was raised with everything she needed and now at 22, the ripe old age, right, can provide the same for herself. This, she says, erases the appeal of dating for security, which she claims is often a reason young women enter relationships with older men. So, how are we jumping into older men relationships when you've never had a relationship with a younger man? A lot of older men don't even have security or money, and no one I've met comes remotely close to someone I'd want to bring home. She doesn't rule out relationships entirely, but says that at this stage of her life, she hasn't seen anyone who meets her standards or adds value to her life. And again, all at the age of 22. So here's someone by the name of Kobe putting something out into the ether. The gag is abstinence. Can't save you from the clowns waiting when you come back. The ideal time or space to explore does not exist. Her response, if that's what she's responding to, in my 22 years of living, again, the ripe old age of 22, I haven't seen a single benefit to getting a boyfriend. LOL. Her comments have resonated with many young women who feel overwhelmed by the emotional labor often demanded in relationships. Others have pushed back, arguing that healthy partnerships do exist, but require discernment and emotional maturity. Now, I will put a stamp on that statement right there. Yes, you can't go into a relationship thinking that it should all just work, nor should you believe that there's no reason why I should put any effort in if I don't see what I'm looking for right away. There's got to be a level that everyone understands inside of a relationship where it is puff, puff, give. But also, you've got to go through the process of setting boundaries. You have to make sure that whoever you're dealing with, it's known up front what you will and won't do, what will constitute as a red flag, red line, or it's all over. But nonetheless, the boundaries have got to be set. Why would you set boundaries on something that you yourself have not partaken in? Still, her words reflect a broader shift in mindset among Gen Z women who are questioning societal expectations around relationships, self worth, and emotional health. 26, never had a boyfriend before, only been on a handful of dates. I'm guessing ATP means at this point. At this point, I only want a boyfriend for research, not to actually have and keep one. I know I'm the problem in my situation, someone commented. So it seems that someone is, as they say in England, taking the piss or making jokes about it. So her approach seems rather cold. Dare we even say aloof? A lot of decisions that she's making, but she's never really taken part in the action that would allow you to have some type of input or output. Choosing peace over pressure. Her message is clear. She is not bitter, broken, or lonely. She's just protecting her peace. It just doesn't seem appetizing at all, she says about modern dating. I haven't seen a single benefit to having a boyfriend. So she has said a lot in just this little bit here. What I want to do here, give me a second. I need to figure out why this video did not pull up the way it needed to because I played it earlier. Scrolling. Where are Well, so if the video doesn't play, she's pretty much saying what we need to look at. I'm pretty sure, once again, it'll just be what we've already seen here. So I'm not going to spend too much time with that. So let's go back here and just break down a few things. I've never had a boyfriend. I've gone on 3 dates my entire life, but I grew up in a very loving home where my parents have been married for 24 years. So that's a good example to have. Your parents have been married for 24 years. So you should have a baseline on what a good relationship looks like. But the thing here is that if your parents have been married for 24 years, have you even asked the question, what was it that they did to maintain the relationship that they have right now? Now, as I mentioned before, boundaries are one of the first things that need to be set in any new relationship. Being a young adult, but not really a full adult, or let's say an actual adult, because you generally need to reach the age of 30. Now, maybe this is just me speaking, but at the age of 30, you can really classify yourself as an adult because if you've gone to school or if you've been working, you've been able to support yourself for, let's say, at least a decade. That means you've taken care of bills, you've maintained a household, you have car insurance, you've got power bills. Again, and you've also gotten a job. Now, if you're able to do those for a sustained amount of period, a sustained period of time, you've pretty much put yourself in the position to say that I am a functional adult. Now, we're not talking about a relationship just yet, because ideally, before you take on the challenge of a relationship, you have to take on the challenge of day to day life. Again, after college, if you go to college, or if you don't go to college, get up, get to the job. Of course, you get there on time. Make sure you're knowledgeable about what you're working on. Ensure that you do what's expected of you on a day to day basis to ensure that you can continue coming back so you can stay employed in order to not be back home on your parents' sofa, if that is an option for some folks, which it is. When I left home, I was 20 years old. I flew out of Frankfurt, Germany to basic training November 4th, 1990. And I remember while on the plane heading towards Lackland, saying to myself, this is it. I'm actually starting out life as an adult. Everything is on me now. And when you get to basic training and you start going through the motions, getting your clothes, getting your arrangements, getting your duties, everything that you're going to be doing for the next 30 days or so, well, 30 and some change, because you don't count the weekends and holidays. But for that basic training term, you are getting the knowledge, at least the baseline of what you need to at least show up to work and show people that you can follow through, that you're healthy, that you are competent enough, and that you are able to do what's expected of you. Then when you get to tech school, now you're being shown your craft. And as you're being shown your craft, you've got to ensure that you can do it at a certain amount of time or within a particular amount of time and be proficient. And should you get past that, you get to your first duty station. And hence, that's what it was like for most of us who joined the military, becoming adults, who, again, who joined the military, went through basic training, got to the first base, get to your job. And then now the trick is to make sure that you do not get kicked out. But you still want to date, right? So that's life for the military member. Now, more on that later. So I'm just setting the baseline here, at least for myself, what it was like becoming an adult, or at least starting in that phase of work for 20 or 40 years. Now, for this young lady, again, her parents are alive. Her parents have nurtured her. They've pretty much given her everything that she's needed. But what I don't feel they gave her was a practical sense on relationships. Because if she's got happily married parents for 24 years, that means that they're doing something right, something that maybe she could have asked them. Now, we don't know if she's had a conversation with them or not. All we know is that she's looking at her peers, and based on what she's seeing of her peers, she doesn't think relationships are worth it. So I'll say this. There's a couple of things I wrote down here. There is no wrong show. Yeah. So there is no guidance offered. So when I say no guidance offered, it appears as if neither her mother or her father have talked to her about her perspective on dating. It seems that she's come up with this on her own. So I don't know if anyone has ever dealt with someone who lacked any type of external guidance. Someone have a conversation with and let them know, before you make this decision, let's talk this out. What have you considered? Who else have you talked to? If you haven't, what's your thought process? Why do you think this way? One would gather from reading here that she hasn't been through that. Now, this part here, but when she looks at what many of her peers have gone through in relationships, she sees emotional turmoil, heartbreak, and mental health struggles. So if you're going through that, the first question, again, who have you talked to about this? Obviously, a lot of people are going to talk to their friends, because I remember at a certain age when sex was not something that you openly discussed with your parents right away. Who did you talk to? You talk to that loudmouth dude that says, yo, man, I'm always up in this. Yeah, this is what you do. Now, this kid may be lying, but you don't know any better because you're trying to get the 411. So you'll take their word for it. So here she's saying that she's seeing emotional turmoil. Obviously, no good decisions are being made, but the thing here is that, was there any good guidance given beforehand? Now, as we grow up in life, our parents will generally teach us about the transactional world. When I say transactional world, I mean a hard day's or a good day's work means that you're going to have an honest day's pay, or something like that. Honest day's work for an honest day's pay. Make sure that when you show up, you work the hardest. Be seen as punctual. Be seen as dependable. Be seen as someone who deserves to be there and who's there to earn their way through. That's what you see, the transactional aspect. But how often do we have the conversation about the emotional aspect? Did your parents ever sit you down and have a conversation about emotions such as jealousy? There's somebody you like, but somebody else likes this person also. You didn't expect that, but you feel slighted because, Well, I talk to her first. Why is she listening to him? Why is she entertaining him? Now, these are certain things that you will experience early on in life. Hopefully, when you get to a later stage, you resolve some actions. Yes, stalker anybody. If you don't have conversations about certain feelings or emotions that are had, what generally happens? You take it upon yourself to figure it out by yourself. So again, she's talking about seeing emotional turmoil and heartbreak and mental health issues. If I'm experiencing those things at some point in time, if I have attentive parents, they may see this. Now, if I don't have attentive parents, but I still have parents who are doting and who will listen if I can speak to them, I could go to my parents and have the conversation about the emotion I have when I see LaQuisha. I'm just coming up with something, but I see LaQuisha somewhere, and obviously I'm feeling a certain type of way. Yo, John, what's going on? You stay straight. Man, I have no idea what you mean by that, John, but follow up a little bit, man, unless that's a typo. But hey, thanks for joining. So anyway, you may end up having somebody who does not know how to speak to their parents, or they may have parents who may not be folks that you can actually have a conversation with. So as a result, if you can't have that conversation with your parents, who do you talk to? So therefore, these kids will take these issues of heartbreak, turmoil, and mental health struggles to their friends. If you don't talk about your feelings, you stay straight. It's just a joke. Okay. I'll take it as that. So if you're not having the conversations with somebody, you end up trying to find a way to fix it yourself, or just I'll just push it down, whatever it is. I'll just keep it to myself. I'll go about my business. But generally speaking, if you're not able to talk to a parent, you will have that one or two friends that you can have that conversation with. And then from there, you'll get your plan of attack, so to speak. So one thing that you learn about heartbreak, if you pay attention to it, is that you can't discuss a heartbreak with someone who has never had one. All right. So just a second. My bad, was in poor taste. Hey, it is what it is, man. All right. Right now, it just seems that the replay game will be catching this. So it seems like you and I are here right now because Fatty is in the middle of a show at the moment. So if you stick around, by all means, man, give me something that you can contribute to the conversation if you could. So again, how do you have a conversation about heartbreak with someone who never really experiences them? But you also have to think about it. Is this a person who puts themselves out there in order to be in a position to whereas they're going to win some, they're going to lose some? You've got to put your hat into the ring here. And this young lady does not sound like she's throwing her hat out, nor will she, because she's been briefed about these are the things that may happen, these are the things that could go wrong, and she's made a decision. Well, I don't want to be a part of it. Okay, so be it. But at some point in time, relationships are craved. Or we'll take that back. We won't say craved. Relationships are desired, they're wanted. I'm not going to say needed, but everyone needs somebody at some point in time. So we'll say that much, right? Everybody will want the companionship, the conversation, the touch, you name it. They'll be looking for that experience. But how do you have that experience if you've convinced yourself that it's not worth it based on what you've seen from others? Now, mental health struggles. Okay, yes, you will have days to whereas when you break up with someone, you don't want to get up, you don't want to eat, you don't want to move. But if you're part of the working class world, you've got to do it anyway. So I can recall when I was younger, when I had breakups with folks. Now, before I was emotionally committed, it was just something to do. It was just someone to do. It was just fun. Now, when I say it was just fun, I'm saying literally that's what it was. Get up, go out to the club, meet someone, get the number, go back, have sex, and do it as much as you could before you had to find a way to ditch the person and be off to the next person. Or if the person was good at what you liked with them when you got them naked, you found a way to keep them around, but not keep them so close as to establish a relationship. Now, this is what it was like for a majority of us in our 20s living in the dorm as young men, albeit there were some young women who got down in the same way as well. Nonetheless, what I'm saying here is that when I did have a breakup with someone, or if they didn't want to see me anymore, I'm like, okay, that's just how I treated it because I wasn't really emotionally invested. But once you start taking the time to become invested, and this is after you've done whatever run through you're going to do, whatever body count you've racked up, you start looking past just getting the job done to getting an understanding of the person you're dealing with. That's when it gets dangerous if you are from a pickup artist background or if you are just a dog and out there to do what you need to do. Now, speaking this from a male perspective, but the mental health of a breakup exists for everyone if they have found value in that other person. So once that value has been achieved and you're trying to have a relationship with someone for the first time, we're not talking about the act of just meeting them, greeting them, having sex, and then being on your way, or just go out for a date, maybe once, twice a week, couple times a month, have sex, and then hey, I'll catch you some other time, or hey, what are you doing lately? No, we're talking about getting to the point where one or both of you is actually looking forward to seeing that person. You think about them when you go to bed. You think about them when you get up. They're on your mind as you go through your day. There's somebody that you want to spend time with. That's the point where you start looking at if this is truly a relationship. Because the honeymoon phase, which is the sex and get on with it, it lasts maybe 30, 45 days. Now, if you happen to be in a career field that you go TDY a lot or you work a certain amount of hours, you can extend that. Or you can also tell a lie. You do what you need to do, right? So when you get to that point to whereas you're not dating just to kick it around, but you've seen value in that person and you think you got it back from that other person, and you're told, no, this is not where I want to be, that shuts everything down. I can remember one particular time, age 22, where I literally could not sleep. I'm talking about in bed at night, maybe about 9 or 10, wide awake until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And you're having conversations with yourself that you'd like to have with that person you're no longer dating or in a relationship with, or whatever it was. We'll call it a situationship for them, but a relationship for you. So as you go through that and you realize that other person does not see you as you thought they did before, there's the period of not eating, losing weight, uh, not wanting to talk to anyone, being at work, people asking the question, hey, what's wrong with John? You're going to go through that. And if you don't have a conversation with someone, you tell yourself, well, I can get over this. Or someone will tell you, you know what the best way to do, excuse me, you know the best way to get over somebody? Find somebody else. So that's where the cycle begins, where now we're getting back into this thing of just running through people. Or if that person really meant something to you, you can't really jump onto that new bandwagon. So that suggestion is not going to work. Not at all. You're not going to be ready to move on to somebody else because you found somebody that you yourself have seen value in. But I say this a lot: value has no worth unless it's agreed upon. Then, of course, there's also the question of boundaries. Now, if it's just a situationship, then everyone will assume it is what it is, which is a situation where we're just getting together. We're not looking for anything long term. Let's just enjoy this while it is. But during that time frame, heartbreak, uh, mental health struggles, meaning that emotionally you find yourself curled up in the fetal position, lying in bed for hours, can't get to sleep. And then when you finally do get to sleep, it's time to get up and go to work. And then it drags on again. Now, this part here is what caught my attention more so than anything, where she says, I've seen girls starting at 14 get emotionally manipulated. They're left with emotional and mental damage so deep they need therapy. Now, how many 14-year-old boys do you know are in a position to manipulate? I'm not saying there may not be one, maybe the two out of 15, 20 kids who may be already utilizing what I'll say is their genetic lottery win. Maybe the kid is tall, maybe the kid is good looking, male or female, already recognizing differences in the shower. Yeah, my stuff is down from here to here or whatever. Or she's like, oh yeah, if I fall down, I'll bounce back up. This type of stuff. Who knows? But anyway, you will have those kids who have the ability to be manipulative at an early age. So this starts the whole thing of for the girls, pretty privilege, and for the guys, you have the handsome handout. Now I've explained this before. Pretty privilege, handsome handout. They're both two sides of the same coin, which is that people will do certain things for you because of your level of attraction, which is referred to as the what's called the halo experience or the halo effect, meaning that if this person is attractive, maybe there are good people as well. Attractive means good, but no, in some cases, or more than some cases, attraction opens you up for manipulation. So this could play into that. But again, a 14-year-old girl getting emotionally manipulated. Now that bothers me to a degree because the question now is that who is talking to her that is treating her in a certain way or manipulating her to whereas she is garnering emotional and mental damage. Now, the first thought that comes is that there's someone who is older than this girl that is talking to her. Somebody she should not even be having a conversation with. Now, I can think when I was 81, no, I was probably 11 years old. And I remember being in school. We were at North Plains Elementary. So this would have been Minot, North Dakota. And there was a girl named Kelly Kaufman. I believe she was probably a year or two older than me. And her brother, I think his name was Mark, was in school with us. Now, the reason why I remember Kelly Kaufman is that because at her age, she was fully developed. Now, if I'm 11, I think Kelly may have been 12 or 13. When I say fully developed, I mean fully developed. And you would hear some of the girls that I went to school with who hung out with some of the older girls talking about Kelly would mess with guys who lived in the dorm. And we're talking about guys in the dorm. We're talking about 18, 19. I'm not really sure what the ages were, but as a minimum, the majority of people that you find in the dorm are going to be 18 years old. That's how old you have to be as a minimum to join the military. So again, Kelly is already out here messing and having sex with guys. Now, of course, at 11 years old, sex is nothing that you're really looking at, but you hear the conversations. So that right there, just because of me having had that experience of hearing about that way back when, I could see the conversation of seeing girls at 14 getting manipulated and having emotional and mental damage. Yes, because if the guy's older, then he is taking advantage, obviously. Still, it is ripe for conversation. She criticizes what she calls a trend of playing house and early motherhood without support. Again, if you've got young girls who are engaging in sex and have not been given proper guidance from either a male or female relative, then you run into this situation. It's going to happen. Now, I can say for myself, having been 14, 15, 16 in the 80s or so, we had stuff that made you recognize that you need to put on a condom. Now, at a certain point in time, a lot of us were not having sex, but I'll say at the age of 14 or 15, no, I wasn't at the time, but I had people around me who were the same age talking about, yeah, I am, or yeah, my girlfriend and I, yeah, we're doing this. Now, I look at them and think, really? Only because of the fact I hadn't really fathomed myself of doing that as of yet. Although you had conversation about it, but you didn't really engage in it. But if the opportunity did present itself, we had condoms that were being given out right there in school. The school nurse would say, "Hey, I have condoms if you are active." Now, granted, this is for the kids who are 16, 17, 18, at least that's what you thought. But that didn't necessarily mean that kids 12, 13, 14 weren't doing it also. Now I'm talking about the time where you had Cinemax, you had HBO, you had AMC, you had all the movie channels that were on that set top box. Whereas if you waited for your parents to go to sleep, you could sneak in and turn on Cinemax and HBO, and you could watch some of the old, or well, it's old now, but at the time they were new. But you could watch some of the sex movies. We'll just call it what it was. We can see what was out there. And you had a lot of corny movies that used to be on, but people were always in it having sex. So, of course, there's this epidemic of teen pregnancy that pops up here and there. And you have to ask the question, so what's being done about it? Who are they having the conversations with? So, back in the 70s and 80s, there were television shows or programs that would address that from time to time. And if it wasn't a television show that you watched on a regular, then when you came home from school, we had the ABC After School Special. And inside of the ABC After School Special, you would have um, shows that would deal with teenage pregnancy, that would deal with drug use, that would deal with abuse, that would deal with when parents are divorcing, something that would teach you and give you some type of idea of how to deal with the situation. It's funny when I stop and think about it right now, how much television we had back in the 70s and 80s that actually geared itself towards trying to ensure that there were no issues experienced or negative issues that were experienced by kids because they wanted you to be prepared somehow. Now, obviously, you just don't have that anymore nowadays. I think the last little bit of television that may have been out there was what, Saved by the Bell, Barney for the little kids, or Nickelodeon. Things that I don't even watch anymore. I don't even I don't even know if they still exist. I mean, if it does it have programs that address these things? And if it does, how often? And who's there to drill the point home of what to do if an issue doesn't occur? So again, playing house, early motherhood without support, adding that too many women are being pushed into relationships that ultimately derail their futures. Now, when you start talking about playing house, you've gotten to a certain age now, whereas you should know how pregnancy occurs. There should be no misconstrue, but yet you still see a lot of young girls out here who are still getting pregnant at an early age. Now, I won't sit here and put that all on her per se. Now, there's an unpopular opinion that many of us on the panels have presented, whereas it turns into a free for all. So let's take a side street for a moment. Now, again, I'm expecting some commentary coming back from the replay gang on this. So, if replay gang, if you're there and you see this, by all means, drop a comment and let's continue this further with the post because I do need to get better about it. I've seen statements made by women young as 22 and as old as 45 and up saying that these men are out here running around getting girls pregnant. Every time I hear that statement, I know that this is going to be a conversation. If it's one that's put out there for the panel, I know it's going to be a conversation that's going to end up with the lack of accountability for individual choices being made. And that's for men and women. So when I hear that type of question or statement that men are running around getting women pregnant, I throw this out here, or actually a more scenario. A man who wants to have sex with a woman approaches her with no condom. She sees that he has no condom. She asks him, "Hey, are you going to put a condom on?" He says, "No, I don't like how they feel." So at this point in time, we know he is the first failure. He has made a choice that, regardless of sex resulting in pregnancy or even an STD, he's not putting the condom on. So at this point, he has failed. So now the question is, since he won't be the adult in the situation, will she be the adult? Now she's got two choices. She can tell him, "No, yeah, we're not having sex unless you put a condom on." So that puts the court back, the ball back in his court. Contingency, if and then. If you do not wear a condom, then we will not have sex. Now, that's fair. That's a response that most fathers would hope their daughter would make if they're going to have sex. Same thing with the mothers. You would hope that's something that she will say to someone approaching her for sex who is not going to wear a condom. However, what seems to be the going trend nowadays, she will say, "Okay," and still have sex with the guy, to which now you have to depend on his pullout game, as they say. And if his pullout game is weak, we've got a situation now. So when she does end up pregnant, the question is, whose fault is it? Now, I've seen women who have blamed the guy like it's his fault that I got pregnant because he put the responsibility on me. To which I would just come out and say, no, it's your fault you got pregnant because you had the opportunity to make a choice that would not make you a participant in a bad situation. You can't blame him for being pregnant. As opposed of saying no to him, you became a part of that poor decision by not telling him no. To which I will say, men do not running around, men do not run around getting women pregnant. More so, women make the choice to have unprotected sex. In this situation that I laid out, he had a choice when he had already failed. He wasn't going to put a condom on. So therefore, it was up to her to be the adult in the situation. So she pretty much joined him in poor decision making. So the responsibility in the end comes down to her because access is not given unless she says so. Now, this is going to be repetitive to people who follow me, but again, as a man, I cannot trick a woman for what's hers. If she likes him, he may get in. If she likes him and thinks it's cute, he may get in. But the minute she lets him in, he gets it and goes. Now all men are dogs. I can't take from you what's yours. I can only convince you why you should give me what's yours. Persuasion is all I have at my disposal, but it's going to be her choice, regardless of how things pan out. So, therefore, there's a level of responsibility that has to be taken because access is controlled by her. Think about this: you got a house. Are you just going to let anybody run into your house? No, you're not. Before you let anyone in your house, you're going to ask questions. You're going to observe behavior. You're going to do a whole bunch of things before you let someone come inside of your domicile. That is a level of access that you control. And in this sense, I'm speaking to you girls or ladies. This is your house. I can't get into your house until you decide I have passed a certain level of test or aka shit test or whatnot, whatever you want to call it, to get through the front door. Ladies, you control that. So let's stop this thing of men running around getting women pregnant. Make sure that after hearing me make this statement, that you do not make that statement anymore. Do not rely on that. Well, too late. You've already heard it. So you can't take it back. You've heard me state it. Men do not run around getting women pregnant. More so, women make the decision to have unprotected sex because it is a choice as well as an action that you control. So you don't have to play house. If you still want to have sex, cover up or participate in activities that do not result in pregnancy. But don't sit here and say that it's his fault if you get pregnant, knowing that he was not going to cover up, but you still had sex with him anyway. All right, we beat that horse to death. So by ensuring that we do the cover up thing, birth control or abstinence, there's no issue with motherhood. You don't have to worry about being that teenage mother in school or in college. That's the added pressure that you don't want in life while you're still trying to figure out what you want to do. Now, can you still make it? Yes. Now, I'm not advocating that you be a teenage mother or a young mother in college. I'm not advocating that. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I'm saying that I have seen people make it through. Now, of course, they have to rely on the support system of their family, mother, father, extended family, grandmother, cousins, whatever, aunts. They will participate if they are there and if they feel that, okay, you may have made a mistake, but it doesn't have to define your life. You can still bounce back and recover from that. Now, there's a level of self sufficiency that everyone needs to have at a certain point in time. Um, I want to say that I didn't finally break away and become completely self sufficient on my own, paying for my own stuff until I was probably 26, maybe 27, to where I stopped going to my father. Hey, dad, my car broke down. I'm in England. My car's breaking down. Can you buy this computer for me? Can you help me with this? Can you spare this little bit? Now, my father's trying to go about his business. This is when he was still active duty, and he's got me in his pocket on Monday, and then my twin brother in his pocket on Tuesday for stuff. So we were always in this guy's pocket for something. So at a point in time, I realized I need to be my own man. My problems, my issues, it needs to come from me to take care of these things. Again, that's a part of being an adult. But as an adult, you have to understand you don't put your financial shortfalls or shortcomings on anyone else. Whatever actions you take, it's on you. Now, that's odd here when I see this. Her take also addresses financial self sufficiency, pointing out that she was raised with everything she needed and now at 22 can provide the same for herself. So I don't get the impression that she is paying for anything or paid for anything. You almost want to believe that she still lives at home. So if she is living at home, of course she doesn't have to worry about being self-sufficient or being in a position where she can't survive because she's getting support from her parents. So it's hard to say from here if she's living on her own, if she's got a job. You can't really tell. So all you're seeing right now is just statements of what I wouldn't do. I see there's a problem with this person or with this level of man. He can't support himself and he's an older man. Well, you've never really been out with a younger man. So why are you looking at things from a perspective of this is not good enough for me or you do not meet my standard? What I see overall is someone who has not been challenged. That's essentially what we're looking at. A young lady who has not been challenged. She's got a lot of ideas about a relationship, about what she will and won't allow, but she is not engaged in anything to test how she sees her, how she sees herself and her capability in handling a relationship. She's got all the answers that have never been tested. So, in a sense, you're avoiding a challenge, and the challenge is life. Somewhere along the way, there's going to be a relationship that we indulge in, or excuse me, engage in, whereas we may meet someone who sees us the same way that we see them. And that again is that value that I talk about. But the thing about value is that you also have to qualify for what you want. And I say that not to be harsh, but to state a fact. You just can't say to yourself, "Well, I'm an eight, so therefore, because I see myself as an eight, I expect everyone else to see that as well." No, 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 no. Again, value has no worth unless it's agreed upon. So for you to sit here and say that, well, I haven't met anyone who rises to my standards. Have you seen you? Yeah, it's a cute little girl for the most part. I can't say she isn't, but just from looking at this on a scale of 1 to 10. Now the question is, how would I gauge her? All right, so 5 is average, 6 is attractive, 7 is pretty or cute, 8 is beautiful, 9 is gorgeous, and 10 is an extraordinary beauty. So, looking at this young lady, I would give her 5, maybe, no, I'll say adjustable 6, 6, maybe 7. Pretty, possibly cute, but definitely she could be seen as attractive. But I would not look any higher than that. Now, that is me. That is how I would rate her beauty myself. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that someone else would look at her and think differently. But if you're asking John, she's a 6 at best, 6, well, adjustable 6, 6.5, 7, right in there, which means that she's attractive. So she's got her foot in the door from that perspective. And she's what someone would consider pretty, potentially cute. Beautiful, again, no. Again, that's how I look at it. Somebody else would think differently. By all means, please drop a comment, replay game, if you think differently as well. Now, being overwhelmed by emotional labor or demands in relationships, it goes back to boundaries again, setting expectations. If you feel that somebody is moving too fast, let them know you have a voice in the relationship. And I mean this to both men and women, whether you're over 45 or under 30. You have a voice. Don't be in a relationship where you allow someone else to guide you someplace and you don't say anything because if you say something, you're afraid you might lose that person. If you are worried about having an open conversation and dialogue with the person that you're in a relationship with, it's not worth having. I will say that right now. I can speak many a time before I develop my voice to say something back where I would tolerate certain things to which it would give that other person I'm dealing with the feeling that, okay, if he's going to let me talk to him this way, then cool. I don't have to worry about him saying anything back to me. I'll just do as I please. And if he gets upset, I'll just threaten to leave and he'll fall right in line. So I had girlfriends like that. Whereas I would sit there and go through her shit test. Well, I need a man who's strong enough to put me in my place. Why would I need to put you in your place if you know you're intentionally being out of it? I guess she wants to see, well, what would you do if so and so? So a lot of those shit tests I used to fail when I was younger. But when I started getting hip to what was going on, I saw the shit test. I wouldn't fail any longer. Matter of fact, I would stop the test and put that person out, and I get a whole new classroom to start with. Now, granted, keep in mind now, fellas, again, a woman knows who she's looking for before she gets out of bed in the morning. If you get her attention, it's because you're either the man she's looking for, or you just might be an acceptable alternative until what she really wants comes along. And even then, you really don't know. But you've got to keep your head on swivel to a degree, more so nowadays than back then. Why? A woman will never be cold, broke, and lonely unless she chooses to be. But she can be cold, broke, and lonely based on how she chooses to behave. Now, put that together and think about it. Now, also, nothing I love worse than listening to the conversation, also, which I'm almost sure you would hear this from this young lady talking about a woman's worth. Now, I had a friend of mine um, who gave me a good piece of advice when I was younger. We're talking about maybe 20 some odd years ago. He said, you know something, John? When you start hearing this conversation of a woman's worth, just simply look at her and state to her, a woman's worth is nothing more than the attention the man is showing her in that moment. And he said, if she's about her business, she will shut up and recognize that she's going too far. But if she is mouthy, uh, adversarial, contentious, and all this type of stuff, she'll show you exactly how she is and what her worth is. And her worth has to be recognized. Otherwise, you're not a real man, you're weak, or she doesn't know why she's even dealing with you. Let it go. All right, let it go. But understand something, ladies. Your worth is whatever it is from that person that you're with, because there should be value between the two of you. And just as quick as value is had, value can be lost, meaning that you are worth nothing at that point based upon behavior. Again, not to put that on you guys, it happens with men as well. Sometimes we just don't learn our lessons like we should. You said you're going to call. Yeah, I meant to call, but something come up. But I got you though. I'm here right now, right? I didn't miss the call. I missed the call. I didn't get here, but I'm here now. Let's make the best of it. But sometimes being here now and not being when you're supposed to be gets to be grating. Yeah, I've lost out once or twice because of the fact that I never got where I needed to be. Now, truth be told, I wasn't really into the person like that, but it was a convenience to me. And I'm pretty sure that I was the mental struggle, the heartbreak. Yes, I've been that to someone, but I've been on the receiving of, excuse me, on the receiving end of that as well. So there's reciprocity in this. So when she talks about, again, the emotional health, self worth, and questioning societal expectations around relationships, the question is, who have you talked to about this? If you have had the conversation, did you reflect on it? Did you think about how your decisions play a part of that? As I said, you are a part of the relationship, people. Don't allow yourself to be in a relationship where you feel manipulated, you feel pushed, you feel stressed, and you're not getting your say. Now, when I say get your say, I'm not talking about being up in somebody's face, all this or whatever it is that y'all do. I'm not talking about that. when you have your say, it has to be constructive. When we go through the motion and such, this is how I feel. And you outline it. You have the conversation where you bring your concerns there. And if you have somebody that you're in a relationship who's able to meet you on that plane, you can have a fruitful discussion. What's the best way to have a decent relationship in the beginning? You like the person who likes you back. Now, can you sometimes convince someone? Yes. Again, a guy after a girl, if you are able, or should I say, if she is interested in you, she can be persuaded to a certain degree. Men chase, women choose. But if you are her type, guys, she can be persuaded. Now, if you get that moment of persuasion and you F it up, so be it. You had your opportunity. But understand that there was something that she saw in you. That is a focal point where men have lost understanding of. Men chase, women choose. Why? Because men are, I'm not going to say we're programmed, but men have always pursued the fairer sex to the point that we put women on pedestals at times. And women who know that they're on a pedestal will do one of two things. They will either respect it or they will take advantage of it. Different show, but keep that in mind. Cue it up. So, winding this down here. Again, this young lady is 22 years old, never had a boyfriend, never had a real relationship, sees older men as manipulative, or excuse me, not manipulative, but sees older men as not really having their own financial security in place. How ridiculous is this? Again, you haven't dealt with a younger man in that capacity, but yet you're already looking forward towards older men making the mistake or making a judgment that, well, they're not ready either for a relationship. So, where do you go with this? What do you have that you bring to the relationship? Because again, at 22, the world, if you're an attractive girl, the world is yours to be had. Your worth is as high as it's going to be between the ages of 22 and 35. At least that's what is put out into the ether. Now, can we have a conversation about that, about worth? Well, yes, we can. Because a 22-year-old girl who is attractive, I'm talking attractive to the point to whereas she's got guys 8 to 10 years older than her wanting to date her. Guys who are more established than the young men in her age group right now who can get her attention. So if you are a young man who is 22 and you're talking to a girl who is 22 as well, where is the value? Her value is going to be a whole hell of a lot higher than his because he can't buy things if she's that type of person. He can't go to certain places. He's not a part of certain things because he just doesn't have that type of, we'll say, prestige right now. So if he can't do that, that means that he needs to work himself to a position where he is able to build value in himself. Now, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing because you still have to make certain concessions in life if you want to get to where you need to. A man must change his path numerous times. Or let me take that back. A person, all right, could be man or woman, a person must change their path many times to get to where they want to go. And that's just a part of life as well. So from 22 to 35, or 22 to 30, whose value is higher? It's going to be hers. Because again, if she is attractive and she is feminine about herself, she's not contentious, she's not adversarial, or none of this type of mess, she will find herself in situations whereas she will benefit from chivalry. Chivalry will be shown towards her. if she maintains that. Now, from 30 to 35, she's still somewhat attractive, but maybe she's not getting the phone calls she used to. And we're talking about the perspective of she is what she is right now. She's independent. I don't need a man for security. I can do this on my own. We've heard this game before, right? We've heard this for the last 3 or 4 years. I'll get married when I decide I want to get married. I've got my career that I'll deal with. Once I finish doing what I want to, then I'm going to go ahead and get married and find the man that I want. So she's 40 now, not the same type of person she was physically or mentally or emotionally when she was 22. But what about that young man who was 22 years old that did not catch her eye because I can't be bothered with men. You're not on my level. You haven't met a standard that I'd like. You're not someone I want to take home with me. 15, 20 years down the road, now all of a sudden he might be that guy, but she isn't the type of woman that he wants to have in his space because she doesn't meet his standards. Maybe he wanted someone to have kids with. Maybe he wanted someone who was in a certain type of mental space, whereas it's not always a challenge or confrontation in the relationship. Maybe he expects her to look a better way or look a certain way that she doesn't look right now. A whole bunch of things. But the thing is that if you carry this mentality that this young lady has right now, you're just going to be that woe story that we hear down the road. I should have done it when I was younger. Now, that's not going to be everybody. No, I'm not going to sit here and say that. But I will say that at some point in time, you've got to throw your hat in the ring. You've got to have some skin in the game. You got to be willing to lose it all to win the world. But it requires an effort to be made. Playing it safe, meaning that I'm not going to play unless I know I'm going to win, it's not a way to go through life, people. You have to be willing to take some chances. All right, so I think we're done here. The fellas didn't show up, but that's all right. We've got the replay gang, as I've said, who will take it from here, hopefully. So, that being said, I'll go ahead and leave it with this. Find somebody who knows somebody to tell somebody about what we've got going on over here. If you like it, let me know. Share it if you do. And subscribe. This is what you're looking for. John Henry out.